Well, did early National Signing Day live up to the hype? What's up, everybody? Hope you're having a super blessed day. And yesterday had to be one of the best early National Signing Day classes that we have ever had. There was big time moves, big time winners, big time losers. Things were just going absolutely crazy all day. So guys, be sure to leave this video a like, hit that subscribe button because we're going to keep you up to date with everything that's happening in the college football recruiting world. And be sure to comment down below, what did your team do? Did they win? Did they lose? We'll kind of break it down. Let's get into it. Also, everybody that was in yesterday's live stream, I just want to say a big thank you. We broke absolutely every streaming record that I've ever done. Though that was the longest stream I've ever done. That was the most people I've ever had on the stream at one point. That was the most likes that I've ever gotten. You guys have showed a ton of love and I really do appreciate the love. Jumping straight into it, let's just get the biggest news out of the way. Yes, Travis Hunter officially, he went into the transfer portal and he is officially going to be playing for Colorado and he's going with Coach Prime. I think that we all knew that, but literally for the last 5-6 hours of the day, we were just sitting there just waiting for him to make his move. He said that once he got his YouTube channel from 70,000 subscribers to 100,000 subscribers that he was going to announce where he was going. He got 100,000 subscribers and then about 5 hours later, he ended up telling everybody where he was gonna go. But you know what? It's official now. So now, you know, stick until the end of the video because Coach Prime might do another Travis Hunter-esque move in 2023. But getting into the meat and potatoes of early National Signing Day, you cannot talk about early National Signing Day without bringing up the Oregon Ducks. The Ducks were flying high yesterday. Now, in all honesty, going into the early signing period, things were looking on the downturn for the Oregon Ducks. Long time Oregon Duck commit, and depending on who you ask, the second best quarterback in the country, Dante Moore, ended up flipping right before early National Signing Day to UCLA. And so things were already looking to take a turn for the worse, seeing that the Oregon's top recruit in the recruiting class ended up flipping. But Dan Lanning and them Oregon Ducks said, nah, we good, and they more than made up for it, picking up some absolute weapons on all sides of the ball. First and foremost, before we get into all the 5-star guys, I think that out of all the recruits that Oregon got, the most impressive recruit is 4-star quarterback Austin Novosad. Oregon ended up flipping him from Baylor. Austin is ranked currently as the 10th best quarterback in the class of 2023. If you ask me, he is closer to the 6th best quarterback in this class, 6 or 7, just kind of depending on where you rank Jaden Rashada. He can absolutely spin the ball. I've seen this kid in person. I've seen him live. He has a very live arm, a very quick release. He was one of my favorite dark horse quarterbacks. And now that he's going to Oregon, this is if you couldn't get Dante Moore, Austin Novosad is a great consolation prize. But then Oregon went absolutely nuts, bringing in 2 5-star recruits in Mateo Uiagalelei, brother of DJ Uiagalelei, the 5th best edge rusher in the country. And now, while yes, he still has not officially signed yet, which we are waiting for, but the number 2 safety in the country, Peyton Bowen, has a hard commit to the Oregon Ducks. Now, it is still up in the air whether he ends up going back to Notre Dame or if he does end up signing with the Ducks. But even the fact that they were able to get him to commit there is a big recruiting win. On top of that, even though it took a little bit longer than expected, the 2nd best wide receiver in the country, Jerrion Dickey, did officially sign his letter of intent to play for the Oregon Ducks, as well as Dalen Austin, the 12th best corner, ended up becoming a Duck as well. Overall, Oregon just had by far, obviously excluding Alabama and Georgia, Oregon had by far the best early signing period day, and it's not even close. The amount of moves that they made, I mean, Mateo Uiagalelei, he was between Clemson, USC, Ohio State, Alabama, and then for Oregon didn't come out of nowhere, but to bring him in is massive. Peyton Bowen, Oregon was out of nowhere for Peyton Bowen. I thought that he was either going to Notre Dame or to Ohio State. The fact that he ended up going to Oregon, big time win. Dalen Austin was one of the best corner prospects that was still available, that was still kind of open in his recruiting. And then to get Austin Novosad, on top of already all the work that they've put in this recruiting class, Oregon did a phenomenal job opening up early signing day. And obviously you cannot talk about winners of early signing day without bringing up the Alabama Crimson Tide. Alabama absolutely cleaned up. They already had the number 1 recruiting class coming into today, and they just took a mile lead out in front of any other team. Alabama, I believe that Alabama this year is going to have the greatest recruiting class of all time, and they're going to beat Texas A&M recruiting class last year. Alabama was already coming into the early signing period, bringing in 5-star edge rusher and the #1 edge rusher in the country in Keon Keeley, and then ended up flipping a few days later at that point the #1, now ranked the #2 offensive tackle in the country in Caden Proctor from Iowa. And then they come in and just shock. I mean, it's not shocking because Alabama gets whoever they want, but they bring in teammates Quay Russaw and James Smith. James Smith is the 2nd best defensive lineman in the country, and Quay Russaw is the 3rd best edge rusher in the country. Alabama just absolutely stacked up. Every single last one of their recruits signed their letter of intent. They are 100% stacked up. Right now, the only other players that Alabama's recruiting class is locked. The only thing that they're doing is just adding a couple of pieces here and there. Alabama does what Alabama does, and they continue to recruit better than anybody else in the country. Absolutely impressive. Now, getting into the losers, it does hurt me for me to say because I am an honorary Ohio State member, but Ohio State had a rough day. Now, yes, they did get the 20th best edge rusher in Joshua Mickens, but that was it. Obviously, Ohio State did a great job of doing a lot of the heavy lifting earlier in the recruiting cycle, but missing out on Mateo Uiagalelei and Damon Wilson was 2 big losses, as well as losing Kayan Lee to LSU, I believe. That just was not, or no, they lost Kayan Lee to Auburn. That's just not, Ohio State's normally recruits a lot better than that. On top of the fact, they also might lose out on Jaden Bonsu. They have a 4-star corner that's been committed to them forever, but he hasn't sent in his paperwork yet, so he's still up in the air. Yes, Ohio State, they did a great job of recruiting as much as they needed to in the front half of the recruiting cycle, but they simply did not do enough, in my opinion, on early signing day. They had a lot of players that they had in their crosshairs, and they just simply were not able to just bring those guys in. Just wasn't a good day for the Buckeyes. And the last loser that I want to cover before we get back into the winners had to be Notre Dame. First off, you lose your 5-star safety Peyton Bowen and 4-star running back Jaden Lamar, both to Oregon. It's one thing when you lose recruits to other schools, but when 2 of your top recruits end up going to a completely different school, and this is also coming off of Dylan Edwards flipping to Colorado, losing their top running back prospect, Notre Dame has just been losing a lot of their top pieces. Don't get me wrong, they still have a top 10 recruiting class, but they were not able to keep major pieces, and they weren't able to add any pieces with the pieces that ended up leaving. Notre Dame simply did not do enough. Also, one more team that I want to add, USC. I'm gonna keep it a buck. I'm a USC fan, as you guys can see from the sign behind me. USC did not do enough today. The #1 recruit that we still have on our crosshairs is 5-star tight end Deuce Robinson, and we were not able to pick him up. And now Georgia looks like they could end up stealing him on the back end. USC needs to lock down Deuce Robinson. We also need to add a couple more pieces because we have a solid recruiting class up top. We got a lot of heavy hitters up top, but then that recruiting class falls off very quickly, and USC needs to add a lot more depth to their team if we want to be making real runs at the college football playoffs. So overall, I would have to say that Ohio State, Notre Dame, and USC had very rough days on early National Signing Day. And the last 2 winners that I want to talk about, first, we obviously got to talk about Georgia. Georgia does Georgia things. They go out there and they get pretty much whoever that they want, and they did a phenomenal job of bringing in Damon Wilson. That was a massive recruiting win. On top of that, if you guys do end up getting Deuce Robinson, that is just gonna be absolutely insane. You guys already have a ton of tight end talent going to Georgia, but overall, I mean, to get Damon Wilson and then to also get Gabe Harris, which you guys already had. You guys also brought in, you guys brought in one more guy. You guys brought in Daniel Harris, a top 4-star corner. Georgia did a phenomenal job of bringing in guys. They also brought in Jamal Jarrett, a top 4-star defensive lineman, which we all know that Georgia doesn't necessarily need more defensive line talent, but they stack up at that position heavily. Georgia did a phenomenal job of continuing to just keep pace with Alabama. Obviously, Alabama is way out in front, and they're not going to catch them on this recruiting class, but they did a good job of bringing in more pieces, and they're not just settling with the class that they already had. And the last team that I want to talk about is Texas. Texas, again, is on an upward trajectory. Obviously, Texas has had the #1 player in the country, Arch Manning, locked up for a while now, But you guys ended up flipping the #1 linebacker from Texas A&M and Anthony Hill. He's now signed there, as well as you guys picked up Tausili Akana. Again, another guy that you flipped from Oklahoma. He was potentially going to Oklahoma, now he's going to Texas. You did the same thing with Colton Vasek. Those two guys are going to be a dynamic edge rushing duo. Texas did a phenomenal job of doing, like I said, doing a lot of heavy lifting earlier on in the recruiting cycle and then adding key pieces on early National Signing Day. Texas had a phenomenal day, and all my Longhorn fans should be very excited. Now we got to get into the biggest news of the day, which obviously everybody was at the edge of their seats waiting for Travis Hunter to, whether he was, obviously everybody knew he was going to Colorado, but you know, it's fun to speculate. You know, he could have went to USC, could have went to Alabama, could have went to Georgia. The real person that we have to pay attention to now, and the person that we will really see how much pull Coach Prime has, Cormani McClain might end up flipping to Colorado. Hey, can Coach Prime do it in back-to-back years, flipping the #1 corner in back-to-back classes? I mean, Cormani McClain has been committed. He was committed to Florida. He flipped to Miami, and he hasn't signed his letter of intent yet. Miami's whole recruiting class is completely locked up except for Cormani McClain. They got Francis Mauigoa. They got Samson Okolu. They got Collins Achiampong. They got Miami locked up their entire recruiting class except for Cormani McClain. Obviously, that's the big fish. He's the second best player in the class of 2023. If Coach Prime is able to flip Cormani McClain to go to Colorado, all I know is that whenever Coach Prime finishes his contract with Colorado, if he doesn't get a top SEC job or the Florida State job, then there's some collusion going on that they don't want to see Coach Prime succeed. He has to be hands down the best recruiter out there if he's able to get a Cormani McClain. Also, this is just his first year and he's already bringing in very, very solid talent. Go look at all my videos that I've done covering Colorado players. They might be mid to low 3-star kids, but they are so talented. They play well above their ranking. Coach Prime knows how to not only bring in the big name guys who are going to be an immediate impact, but he also knows how to get the players that are going to be the guys that fill out your roster, the guys that, you know, turn out to be the hidden gems. Coach Prime is really good at finding a lot of hidden gems. So that is the news that we're kind of all waiting for. Desmond Ricks is also going to be committing today, which is another player that we're going to want to be on the lookout for. Right now, he's projected to go to LSU, but you just never know with the recruiting game and NIL nowadays. Anybody can go anywhere. But that was pretty much all of everything that happened on early National Signing Day. There was so much more, but we're gonna keep you up to date with all that. So be sure to leave this video a like and hit that subscribe button and comment down below. What was your guys' favorite part of the early National Signing Day period, as well as what was your team's favorite move that you guys were able to bring in? Obviously, locking up Malachi Nelson, Mekhi Lemon, and Zachariah Branch for me as a USC fan was my favorite move by far. Second up, followed by Austin Novosad to Oregon. I really like that move. But I want to hear from y'all, so comment down below what are your guys' thoughts on the early National Signing Day period. Hit that subscribe button and turn your notifications. You do not want to miss. Things are going to be moving and shaking. Now that we got about 90% of the 2023 recruits locked up, 2024 is right around the corner, and the transfer portal is about to go nuts. And you're not going to want to miss any of those moves. So with all that being said, I love and appreciate all y'all, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Ciao.